Ladies and gentlemen, we've got absolutely huge breaking stuff on the Big 12 in regards to conference expansion. There was a major vote last night that's really going to kickstart all of this, and we're going to be talking about it. But first, I wanted to get quickly to this tweet from Iowa's AD, who said yesterday, quote, on if Notre Dame would be a member, eventually, I don't anticipate that a decision will be made this summer. So the Iowa AD shares the sentiment. Many people in the industry, Notre Dame is waiting, and the Big Ten, for all intents and purposes, will be closed for the summer. They will stay at 16 teams this summer. Now, next summer, maybe they expand, but what it's looking like, the next step in college football expansion, realignment, whatever you want to call it, the Big 12 making a major move, and we've got huge stuff on that. But quickly, I wanted to show you guys a very interesting little bet graph. Now, I think all of these bets will end up being labeled no contest, but I still want to talk about it. It says, next school to accept an invitation from the Big Ten. You can see Notre Dame and Oregon are co-favorites, plus 150. Washington, plus 600. Kansas, I would assume because of their basketball program, comes in fourth at plus 1,400. Cincinnati, I would be shocked if Cincinnati joined the Big Ten. It would be a fun little rivalry for Ohio State and Cincinnati with Luke Fickell, though. And then North Carolina, that's an interesting team. Arizona, there's no chance. Duke, probably not happening. Oklahoma State, all those other teams, very, very little chance. And then next school to accept invite to the SEC, Clemson is the favorite. It would probably be 4 schools going to the SEC if they wanted to poach ACC schools. They wouldn't just, single out Clemson and only take Clemson. They would take Clemson, Miami, Florida State, and Louisville has a ton of money apparently. Baylor plus 500, I would be shocked. But you guys can see the little asterisks at the bottom. Must accept invitation in 2022 for action. If no listed team accepts an invitation, all wagers will be settled no action, which is what I think is going to happen, because right now the general feel, in the college football industry, the Big Ten is done at 16 for this summer. They're waiting for Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is not doing anything this summer. The SEC, you would think, would only respond if the Big Ten was going to expand at this point, because we haven't heard anything on the SEC pursuing these ACC teams other than some report that I think was made up. I don't know. So I would say when it comes to 2022, the SEC and the Big Ten, at least right now, there's not a lot of movement because you need Notre Dame to make a decision for movement between a possible Big Ten future expansion to 18 teams, to 20 teams. You would need Notre Dame to get the ball rolling, and then that would then, in turn, force the SEC's hand to add ACC programs. So that's just another something I wanted to talk about, but we did have some major stuff happened last night when it comes to the Big 12. Expansion committee is formed and Big 12 members have voted to officially pursue expansion. So the Big 12, this was all expected. Don't get me wrong, this was all expected, but this is nonetheless big news to confirm what we already thought, that the Big 12 is aggressively recruiting and trying to get Pac-12 teams to join their conference. The rumored 4, which is really maybe 3, because there's been an idea that maybe Utah doesn't want to join the Big 12. But the main teams, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, right now, those are the teams that are being rumored to possibly be joining the Big 12 conference. We've also got other stuff. ACC pushing back against the loose partnership with the Pac-12. ACC wanting to just invite Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Utah. So the ACC wants to expand and invite those teams? Oh my goodness. Trying to figure out how to get it done without voiding GOR, need ESPN to help bring those. Yeah, so they would need ESPN's help if those 4 teams. So they want Oregon. Wow, that's interesting. Because if you think about it, the Big 12 right now, if the rumor of Utah not wanting to go to the Big 12 is true, this could be legitimate because Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Utah, none of those teams have really been rumored a ton to the Big 12. What I have said about Washington and Oregon, they would use the Big 12 as a secondary option if they can't get in to the Big 10 or the SEC. And the original rumors on Washington and Oregon were they were going to get into the Big 10, at least Oregon was, if Notre Dame accepted into the Big 10 as well. Now it looks like Notre Dame's going to wait. This is very interesting. The ACC, I wonder, yeah, you would need some sort of major money, enticement to make it logical for Washington and Oregon to join the ACC, but that's a way for the ACC to keep themselves together throughout all of this. And again, we always go back to it. The Pac-12 right now is on the brink of disaster. It really is. I mean, every new thing we get, it's getting worse and worse and worse for the Pac-12. This is another situation. The Pac-12 would be ripped to shreds. And here's more bad news for the Pac-12. Hearing that Washington State, Oregon State, and Cal so even California is reaching out to the Mountain West about a potential landing spot should the Pac-12 completely dissolve. And that's interesting because I speculated that Washington State and Oregon State to the Pac-12, to the Mountain West, that would be a good culture fit. I don't really know about California, but it's looking like if all of these Pac-12 teams get split, these 3 teams would be the teams that get left behind, and they would have to join a group of 5 conference, probably the Mountain West. I mean, to me, Washington State and Oregon State fit perfectly in the Mountain West. I don't know, so much about California, but at that point, California's only choice is be independent or join the Mountain West. And I'm sure they would rather join the Mountain West. A team like California would have major issues landing any sort of TV deal and have any sort of relevancy as an independent. So they would go to the Mountain West. I actually have another afternoon tidbit. So this is from yesterday. Big 12 hurt Pac-12 last year by adding Houston and BYU and taking the last 2 remaining schools of value in the Pac-12 geographic footprint they could have used to expand with the recent. So yeah, what he's saying is with UCLA and USC gone, the Pac-12, kind of like the Big 12, could have just pivoted and said, okay, we can take BYU, we can take maybe Houston, although I think instead of Houston, and I'm the Pac-12 looking to expand with 2 more schools, if you just lost, I wouldn't take Houston. I think BYU would be a good school to take, and then Boise State, although maybe Houston, because they're in Texas, maybe they're worth more. Maybe they draw more eyes. I don't know. It's all very close, but that is a good point. Instead of the Pac-12 being able to pivot and say, I mean, technically they could just take San Diego State and Boise State, I guess. But again, you also have to be worried about the idea that Washington, Oregon, these 3 programs talking to the Big 12 who just said they want to expand, these teams could leave, and then we don't know what Utah is going to do. They could also leave to the Big 12, although there's reports that they have cold feet. We'll have to see. Every scenario right now in regards to conference expansion is zeroed in on the Pac-12 losing multiple schools. Losing right now, the most logical thing, those 3, maybe including Utah. I don't know how legitimate the rumor of Utah, because originally it was 4 schools going to the Big 12, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona. Then we heard yesterday Utah doesn't want to do it, which makes no sense unless maybe they think they can get into the ACC. Do they think that? Do they think that they're going to the ACC with Washington and Oregon? And the ACC is going to get help from ESPN to facilitate that? Because remember, ESPN, they've got the whole ACC network. They're not going to want to see the ACC die. The idea, well, I mean, because they also own the SEC network, you could see those ACC schools going to the SEC and making it even more profitable for them in the long run. So there's a lot of scenarios at play right now. The Big Ten, they're done. We've heard from the Iowa AD. We've heard from multiple reputable ESPN sources. There is not expected, again, maybe this changes, and I would love it if it changed. That'd be more content for me. But I'm just saying, right now, it looks like Notre Dame is not deciding this summer. So that means the Big Ten is remaining at 16 teams. That more than likely means the SEC is remaining at 16 teams. Although, I don't really think, what I wonder is, would the SEC expand again before the Big Ten does? Because they did it already. I mean, they started the whole thing, so maybe they just say, we don't have to wait for Notre Dame to join the Big Ten to expand. So they might just do it anyway. So we'll have to see. It would be, if the SEC expanded, more than likely, it would be some form of an ACC, Clemson, Florida State, unless the idea is the SEC, there's also another idea, the SEC poaches Western Pac-12 schools, and it would be Oregon and Washington because they want to have a footprint in the West. That's the only other thing I've heard. But guys, there's a lot of stuff at play. The big news, the Big 12 officially voted last night to explore conference expansion. We knew it was coming. It happened last night. They've been having meetings every day with Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, maybe Utah, although we'll see. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.